Good evening. Welcome to the October 9th, 2018 regular business meeting of the Richland 2 School Board of Trustees. We've got a packed house tonight, and it's for a very good reason. Good to see you all here tonight. We've just returned from executive session where we discussed student appeals and student admission requests into the adult education program. At this time, we will move into item 3.1. I'm trying to talk louder, so y'all bear with me. We'll move to item 3.1, where we'll have the inspirational moment and be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. James Shadd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. Please bear with me. I have to read you I chose this story as an inspirational moment. It's rather lengthy, but it is significant. Thank you. As she stood in front of her fifth grade class on the first day of school, she told the children an untruth. Like most teachers, she looked at her students and said that she loved them all the same. However, that was impossible because there in the front row, slumped in his seat, was a little boy named Teddy Stoddard. Mrs. Thompson had watched Teddy the year before and noticed that he did not play well with the other children, that his clothes were messy, and that he constantly needed a bath. In addition, Teddy could be unpleasant. It got to the point where Mrs. Thompson would actually take delight in marking his papers with a broad red pen, making bold X's and then putting a big F at the top of his papers. At the school where Mrs. Thompson taught, she was required to review each child's past records, and she put Teddy's off until last. However, when she reviewed his file, she was in for a surprise. Teddy's first grade teacher wrote, "Teddy is a bright child with a ready laugh. He does his work neatly and has good manners. He is a joy to be around." His second grade teacher wrote, "Teddy is an excellent student, well liked by his classmates, but he is troubled because his mother has a terminal illness and life at home must be a struggle." His third grade teacher wrote, "His mother's death has been hard on him. He tries to do his best, but his father doesn't show much interest, and his home life will soon affect him if some steps aren't taken." Teddy's fourth grade teacher wrote, "Teddy is withdrawn and doesn't show much interest in school. He doesn't have many friends, and he sometimes sleeps in class." By now, Mrs. Thompson realized the problem, and she was ashamed of herself. She felt even worse when her students brought her Christmas presents wrapped in beautiful ribbons and bright paper, except for Teddy's. His present was clumsily wrapped in the heavy brown paper that he got from a grocery bag. Mrs. Thompson took pains to open it in the middle of the other presents. Some of the children started to laugh when she found a rhinestone bracelet with some of the stones missing, and a bottle that was 1/4 full of perfume. But she stifled the children's laughter when she exclaimed how pretty the bracelet was, putting it on and dabbing some of the perfume on her wrist. Teddy Stoddard stayed after school that day just long enough to say, "Mrs. Thompson, today you smelled just like my mom used to." After the children left, she cried for at least an hour. On that very day, she quit teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. Instead, she began to teach children. Mrs. Thompson paid particular attention to Teddy. As she worked with him, his mind seemed to come alive. The more she encouraged him, the faster he responded. By the end of the year, Teddy had become one of the smartest children in the class, and despite her lie that she would love all the children the same, Teddy became one of her teacher's pets. A year later, she found a note under her door from Teddy telling her that she was still the best teacher he had ever had in his whole life. 6 years went by before she got another note from Teddy. He then wrote that he had finished high school, third in his class, and she was still the best teacher he had ever had in life. 4 years after that, she got another letter saying that while things had been tough at times, he'd stayed in school, had stuck with it, and would soon graduate from college with the highest of honors. He assured Mrs. Thompson that she was still the best and favorite teacher he had ever had in his whole life. Then 4 more years passed, and yet another letter came. This time, he explained that after he got his bachelor's degree, he decided to go a little further. The letter explained that she was still the best and favorite teacher he ever had, but now his name was a little longer. The letter was signed Theodore F. Stoddard, M.D. The story does not end there. You see, there was yet another letter that spring. Teddy said he had met this girl and was going to be married. He explained that his father had died a couple of years ago, and he was wondering if Mrs. Thompson might agree to sit at the wedding in the place that was usually reserved for the mother of the groom. Of course, Mrs. Thompson did, and guess what? She wore that bracelet, the one with several rhinestones missing. Moreover, she made sure she was wearing the perfume that Teddy remembered his mother wearing on their last Christmas together. They hugged each other, and Dr. Stoddard whispered in Mrs. Thompson's ear, "Thank you, Mrs. Thompson, for believing in me. Thank you so much for making me feel important and showing me that I could make a difference." Mrs. Thompson, with tears in her eyes, whispered back. She said, "Teddy, you have it all wrong. You were the one who taught me that I could make a difference. I didn't know how to teach until I met you." For you that don't know, Teddy Stoddard is the doctor at Iowa Methodist Hospital in Des Moines that has the Stoddard Cancer Wing. Some have questioned whether this was an actual story or not, but I don't think it matters because we have teachers right here in Richland District 2 that make a difference in a child's life. We have teachers who work with compassion. They take students as they are, and they love on them as much as they can. We are so proud of all our teachers, especially on a night like tonight, where we celebrate the teachers of the year, but they are amongst a wonderful group that we have, and we are truly a premier district. Thank you. Please rise and let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Shad, I would comment about the story you shared tonight, but I don't want to detract from it, so we'll let that sit right there. Bless you for blessing us with that. Thank you. Next, we will move on to item 4.1, approval of our current agenda. If I could receive a motion at this time.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Plank.
I move that we approve the agenda for the October 9, 2018 board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Plank. Can we get a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded by Mr. Plank and Mr. Shad that we approve our current agenda. At this time, we'll vote. By a vote of 7-0, we've unanimously approved the current agenda. At this time, we'll move on to item 5.1, and I apologize. I'm struggling with allergies a little bit, so my voice is a little raspy, and I'm trying to talk louder. So bear with me this evening as we move on to item 5.1, special recognitions. Dr. Davis.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we'll have Ms. Libby Ruth come before you this evening to present our special recognitions for Teacher of the Year and our NAIOP officers. Ms. Ruth.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Madam Chair, members of the board, again, I always like to say thank you for taking time out of your meeting to recognize the examples of how premier this district is. And the premier status of our district starts with our people, and tonight we celebrate our students and employees. So we thank our parents and community members for joining us, taking time out of your very busy schedule to help us recognize our high achievers. We'll begin by asking Dr. Sabrina Suber, principal at Richland Northeast High School, to please come forward, because her Richland Northeast High School yearbook staff has once again received high honors. Their advisor is Michael Branham. He will come forward, along with Convergence Media Magnet Director A.J. Chambers. All the names of the students on the staff are up there. I'm going to call out the ones that we know are coming tonight. Natalia Davis. And come on up when I call your name. I'm sorry, Mr. Shad, would you like to come forward and present certificates?
Thank you.
I just get so excited when I get to do this. You know how I am. Deidre Hiltner, Samaj Holloway Adams, Maham Khan, Ikra Mashrek. Jay Price. Come right on up. We have Mom for Samaj. I told you, board members, that coming to a board meeting for recognition was a big ticket. Ella, got Jay Price. Jay, get up here. Ella Rail. Elise Scarborough. Kenya Session. Caroline Williamson. And I believe, did I catch everybody? Did we get all the ones who are here? Let me tell you about their latest achievement. The 2018 Archives Yearbook was inducted into the Wadsworth Gallery of Excellence. Only a small percentage of yearbooks are recognized with this honor, and all inducted books represent the best printed by Wadsworth yearbooks. The books are chosen based on their superior examples of theme, coverage, design, photography, and copy. The archive is one of only 3 yearbooks in South Carolina inducted into the Gallery of Excellence. Books that make it into the gallery are shared with teachers across the nation and are used an example of superior recognition. Congratulations to our students and advisors and staff and Dr. Suber for this premier recognition. We need it in the back. All right, let's see. Congratulations again. Next, we'd like to recognize our educational office professionals who have been elected to national positions on the executive board of the National Association of Educational Office Professionals, known as NAOP. We are so proud of the large number of Richland 2 employees who have worked hard to become leaders in their field and in this organization. As we call your name, please come forward. Miss Jill Avery Hart, who works here at the district office, has been installed as president-elect on NAOP's executive board. Don't go anywhere. No, stay right there. Sorry. Georgette Council, also from the district office, has been elected Administrative Council Chair for the NAOP Executive Board. Paula Rosenberger from Longleaf Middle School has been installed as Mid-Atlantic Area Director on the NAOP Executive Board. And Louise Snipe has been installed as the Junior High School Council Chairwoman. You can come closer. Oh, you really don't want me in the back of me in the picture. Congratulations. The NAOP also offers a certification program, and several Richland 2 employees have recently received their designation as Certified Educational Office Employee. This professional standards program was established to encourage educational office professionals to grow professionally. We are so proud of how many certified educational office professionals we have in our district. Please come forward. Siobhan Fulton from the district office at Brookfield. Georgina Hance from Blythewood High School. Anita Hayward from Blythewood High School. Veronica Watkins from Killian Road. And we also want to bring up Lisa Fela from Muller Road Middle, who not only has earned it once, has now earned it twice. It has to be renewed every 5 years. We are extremely proud of your commitment to being premier and going the extra level to earn this certification. Congratulations. Okay, now we're going to ask all of our board members to come up. Oh, wait a minute, sorry, I'm about to skip over one. Thank you, Mr. Shad, you're so good. So what? Now, I would like actually Principal Mark Sims to come forward, along with our own Superintendent, Dr. Barron Davis. Recently, the representatives of the National Guard paid these two gentlemen a visit. The employer support of the Guard and Reserve program recognizes supervisors and bosses who provide support to employees serving in the National Guard or Reserve. Mr. Sims received the Patriotic Employer Award, and Dr. Davis received the Patriot Award for their willingness to accommodate the needs of their service member employees. And they were both nominated by employees who work in our district or at their school and serve in the Guard. Often that means that you are willing to give flexible schedules, time off prior to and after deployment, assistance for caring for families, and granting leaves of absence if needed. Both of them received certificates and lapel pins. Congratulations for this important recognition and for helping to make life easier for those who serve our country. Thank you. Away from the photo. Now it's time for all the board members to come forward because we want to make sure you all get to shake the hands of our 2018-2019 Teachers of the Year. And we have them lined up outside so we can bring them in. I'm going to go ahead and bring them in and then share with you the comments that we want to make to our Teachers of the Year so that they can hear them. So first, we want to call our current District Teacher of the Year, Sue Weems from Blythewood High School. Our 4 honor roll teachers who were finalists for District Teacher of the Year, Jill Lee from Blythewood Middle School. Mary Catherine Burbank from Catawba Trail Elementary. Lachey Williams from Condor Elementary. And Lisa Rayner from Pontiac Elementary. Our school-level Teachers of the Year include Patricia Mack from Bethel Hanbury Elementary. Paige Malone from Bookman Road Elementary. Freda Medlock from Dent Middle. Elizabeth McKenna, Forest Lake Elementary. Tanya Gamble from Keels Elementary. Courtney Robinson, Kelly Mill Middle's Teacher of the Year. Tracy Mitchell from Killian Elementary. Felicia Lewis, Lake Carolina Elementary Lower. Dina Knight from Lake Carolina Elementary Upper. She brought her own cheering squad. Blair Haney from Langford Elementary. Kimberly Jeter from Longleaf Middle. Now, don't do a double take because that's Sean, yes, that's Sean Bishton back there. He hasn't returned to the classroom. Sean is standing in for his Teacher of the Year, Brandy Ross, who cannot be here tonight. Kenyetta Gallman from Nelson Elementary. Aaron Sandusky from North Springs Elementary. Polo Road Elementary's Teacher of the Year, Flo Jackson. Shayna Mitchell from Rice Creek Elementary. Desiree House from Richland Northeast High. Brooke Beatonbow from Ridgeview High. Tamara Silva, Round Top Elementary. Stephen Cross from Spring Valley High. Keisha Clay, who teaches at Summit Parkway Middle. And yes, don't be concerned, Dr. Guy is still principal at Westwood, and she is standing in for Angela Hill. Christina York from Windsor Elementary. And Donna Petty from E.L. Wright Middle. Now, I want to take a moment to speak to you all personally on behalf of everyone in this room. A good teacher can inspire hope, ignite the imagination, and instill love of learning. A premier teacher does that and oh, so much more. And that is what each of you are. Premier teachers who have dedicated your life to performing your craft at an exceptional and premier level and doing the most important thing anybody can do in the world, which is touch the lives of our young children and, most importantly, touch their hearts. We will never be able to thank you enough for what you do. Stand tall and stand proud because you have the best job in the world, and we love you. Congratulations. You feel like rock stars because you are. And now we're going to get y'all to exit out the door over here because we're going to take your photograph on the steps and we will turn the board meeting back over to our board members. Thank you all.
Yes, ma'am.
And for those of you who gave me your purses, yes, I will bring them outside.
We'll give just a minute for the room to clear a little bit. I don't think anything needs to be left said. Mrs. Ruth couldn't have expressed more our appreciation and our gratitude for teachers. It is indeed the most important job and touches every other job in the world. So bless you all. Bless you all. At this time, we will move on to item 6, our consent agenda. If I could receive a motion to approve the same.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Plank.
yes, I move to approve the consent agenda for the October 9, 2018 board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Plank. Can we get a second, please? Mr. Shad, it's been moved and properly seconded that we approve our consent agenda. At this time, we'll vote. All those wishing to vote, please vote at this time. Have all those wishing to vote voted? By a vote of 7-0, the motion is approved. And moving right along to item 7. Item 7.1, school focus. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the board, we have before you this evening Lake Carolina Upper, who's here to present. Principal Jeff Williams will introduce the Lake Shake. Ms. Williams.
Good evening to our board chair, our school board members, Dr. Davis, our district staff, and to our incredible Richland 2 community. We're honored tonight to share a little bit of information about our Lake Shake event. One of our beliefs as a learning community is we need to develop leaders, and that's what it's all about for us. Our Lake Shake helps us teach our students the necessary soft skills to support collaboration and creativity. We are honored to have a member of our 5th grade team tonight, Mr. Russell Cameron, who is one of our co-leaders. And bless her heart, she is multitasking right now. Miss Blair Sexton left Charlotte at 4 o'clock to try to get here. So she's going to hopefully make it to be at least a part of the presentation as well. And then after Mr. Cameron, we're going to have our current Lake Shake winner, Mr. Ethan Kropp, who is currently a 6th grader at Blythewood Middle School. So I'll have them come forward this time.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Good evening, everyone. My name is Russell Cameron, like Mr. Williams just said. I'm a 5th grade teacher at LCEU and work together to organize a Lake Shake event for our 5th grade students each year. The Lake Shake is a multi-tiered social etiquette competition. The 5th grade students at LCEU participate in a way to put their soft skills, ability to think on their feet, and creativity to the test. This competition, based off of Ron Clark's Amazing Shake, offers our students the opportunity to develop skills needed to be successful in the future, while becoming more confident in themselves. This week-long event begins at Lake Carolina campus and eventually leads to other rounds outside of the LCEU community as well as out of state. There are 6 rounds of this competition, with each increasing in difficulty as students move forward from round to round. At the end of each round, the number of contestants dwindle based upon the judges' scores, eventually leading to our Lake Shake champion. Our community understands the value of this annual event and looks forward to watching our almost rising 6th graders to the occasion with each challenge presented. Please give a warm welcome to our 2017-2018 Lake Shake champion, Ethan Kropp.
Good evening, Dr. Barron Davis, Dr. Marshalyn Franklin, Dr. James Anlent Shealy, Mr. Keith Price, honorable board members, and faculty and staff. I would like to give a special thanks to Mr. Russell Cameron and Mrs. Blair Sexton for their leadership and hard work organizing the Lake Shake. We appreciate their commitment and dedication to this event and process. I hope that I am able to express my gratitude for what this opportunity has done for me. Also, thank you to Principal Mr. Jeff Williams, Assistant Principal Mrs. Keisha Chandler-Smith, Assistant Principal Mrs. Jennifer Watson, and the faculty and staff of Lake Carolina Elementary. Thank you for the opportunity to share my amazing experience during the Lake Shake and Amazing Shake. There is so much I could share about my experience, and I'm going to do my best to only use my 2 minutes. The Lake Shake is a competition that tests your soft skills, poise under pressure, and your ability to start and carry on a conversation. For example, when I came in this evening and shook your hands firmly and looked in your eyes as I spoke to you was one of the most important aspects of this competition. This evening, I would like to talk to you about 3 specific points of my experience. Number 1, the Lake Shake experience. There was a total of 6 rounds in the Lake Shake. We began the gauntlet. One of our rounds consisted of working the lunch hour at a local Chick-fil-A with 2 friends of our choice and giving excellent customer service the Chick-fil-A way. Our final round was at the Biltmore in Asheville, North Carolina. We were judged from the time that we got there until our presentation was complete. First, we toured the Biltmore and had to ask questions as we toured. Once our tour was complete, we were given the task of putting together a presentation on how we could make the Biltmore tour kid-friendly and present our pitches to the head of the Biltmore Talent Acquisition and managers. The winner was announced the next morning at school in front of our peers. This was an awesome and rewarding experience, as my friends in school were excited for me. Number 2, my Amazing Shake experience at the Ron Clark Academy. The gauntlet round was a unique experience consisting of 23 stations where each student has 60 seconds to respond to a new situation in the best manner possible. For example, we were in a big room given a pep talk, and all of a sudden there was a young lady that started having a panic attack. We didn't know it, but our test was to see if anyone would help her and react to this and how we would react to this situation. Number 3, what I've learned from this experience. Number 1, I learned a firm handshake and looking someone in the eye is very important. Number 2, I learned how to process information under pressure and to be poised. Number 3, present information in front of an audience like I am doing today. Number 4, work the room by engaging the conversation with others. Number 5, proper table etiquette and table manners. Number 6, how to conduct myself in an interview. Number 7, importance of good communication and people skills. Number 8, courage. And number 9, positive self-image and self-esteem. I'm definitely trying to use all of these skills and information that I have learned to help me in my education and throughout my life. I believe that in every school in this district should have the Lake Shake competition because of these experiences. Students can practice what they will need as they grow and mature. Thank you.
And just on a final note to brag on this young man, in this national competition in Atlanta, Georgia, he competed against 5th through 8th graders across the country and over 100 students, and he finished in the top 15 as a 5th grader. So congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, Mr. Cannon, Mr. Kropp. It goes without saying that your presentation was amazing. It's no wonder that you won the competition. And let me just say something to you. We stress to our students to, learn reading, writing, arithmetic, and that it's important to study very hard and make the best possible grades that you are capable of making and to be as studious as you are possible of being. But just to impart something that, my family, my mom and grandparents have always instilled in me, it's what you know is important, but the way that you treat people goes a long way. People are often forgiving if you don't know something and will work with you, but being kind and gracious, the way you talk to people means a whole lot. Just good home training and manners, and that just sticks out to me because that's just so important to me. People can know a whole lot of stuff, but if you're not a very kind person, you're not very gracious, and people are always receptive to that. So bless you for what you know, but also how you are. And thank you for being just so well-mannered and poised and just a very nice, likable, kind person. And people typically respond in kind. So bless you, and bless you for the folks who've worked with him. And I imagine at home, too. There's a little bit of that at home, too, I imagine. But bless you for your presentation tonight. That was certainly a treat. You are the star of the show this evening. Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments regarding the presentation?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say one thing. Ethan, I coach men on Wednesday nights about manhood and among other things, but and it applies to everything. But you have figured out by the 5th grade what many men go their whole life not figuring out, and that is just 4 elements, and that is rejecting passivity, accepting responsibility, leading courageously, and investing eternally. And I'm just so proud of you, and I just wanted to let you know that's an amazing feat. So congratulations.
Mr. Plank, thank you. Dr. Elkins Johnson.
Ethan, I just want to say thank you so much what you've done, and we know it started at home because parents are their child's first teacher. So thank you so much what you've done, and I just look forward to the future of the great things that you're going to do. So congratulations and thank you, and you're so handsome too. Handsome and smart. That's a plus. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. Any other comments?
Madam Chair.
Mr.
Kraut,
Shad.
thank you so much for sharing who you are with us and the process that you went through. I really was very impressed with you shaking our hands, looking us in the eye, and telling us that it was your pleasure to meet us. As Mr. Williams said, and your leaders have said, it's truly about soft skills at this point. Yes. That is going to carry you a long way. What's that saying, Ms. Mackey? Good manners will take you farther than any book that you can read or what have you. Absolutely. So I just echo the sentiments of my colleagues in terms of good home training, and then it's been enhanced at our school, Lake Carolina Upper. And Ms. Sexton, glad to have you. You made it. Thank you for getting here safely. Yes, ma'am. But I know there's some proud parents, and I definitely saw a dad that kind of looks like you with the bow tie on. Yes. Proud father. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shad. Any others?
In about 31 years, I want you to come sit in this spot right here.
Agreed.
You have the top 10, those 10 rules that you share with us, those 10 things you learned will make you a very, very successful person in life. I think you did an outstanding job communicating that. And so we're all very proud of you, your family, your school community. So great job. Keep up the good work. Yes, sir.
Questions or comments? We'll move on to item 8.1, public participation. This is the time during our board meeting when we allow people who have signed up from the public to come and address the board. Just a few housekeeping rules. The comments are limited to 3 minutes. We ask that you not delineate any particular school, teacher, or student, and you don't have to give your address, but we'd love for you to come forward at this time, and I think the red button has already been pressed, and we would love to hear from Michelle James. Welcome.
Is this on?
It is on,
Okay.
yes, it is.
I would have to follow that. I'm not going to be as exciting as that.
Yes.
My name is Michelle James. It's an honor to be here before you this evening. I know some of you personally. I'm not here as a parent. I do have a student that graduated from a Richland 2 high school. I have a junior that is at a Richland 2 high school, but I'm not here in that capacity tonight. I am here as a member of Village Church, and I have my fellow members sitting on this row, some scattered. We're supposed to have buttons, and unfortunately they were back ordered. So,
It's okay.
But in the future, we'll be here with our buttons, so we'll be easily identifiable, and you'll know who we are. I'm also here as a member of our civics team. We formulated a civics team a couple of years ago, and how that relates to you is part of the mission statement is to inform our congregation, which right now we're at 800 plus members, and we have lots of visitors who come as well. It's our job to inform our congregation of issues that directly impact them. We, as you know, we have members that attend Blythewood High School and Richland Northeast and Westwood, so, and all of the many elementary schools and middle schools. So they care about what's going on in the district. So it's not an ulterior motive or anything like that. We just want to develop a relationship with you. Our church cares, and we prove that by being on the football field on Friday night and working the first down markers and donating money so football teams will have food, many other ways in our elementary and middle school. And we just want to make sure that we are starting to develop a relationship with each and every one of you and know that you can use us as the middleman. We can be your, I guess, gateway to reaching a number of people with issues that you're trying to get out there. So that's why we're here tonight. You're going to be seeing us in the future. We hope this will be a long-standing relationship. We are here for you. And this is our pastor right here, Pastor Eastep. Many of you know him. And we're on Reimer Pond Road, for those of you who don't know. So you'll be seeing us here, and just reach out to us for anything. When we are here, please feel free to ask us questions, or if there's something coming up, to please, say, hey, get the word out to your congregation. So we thank you for your time this evening, and we appreciate your service, because I know that it is a sacrifice. Public service is a sacrifice, sometimes even away from family. So we really do appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Shad,
I know we cannot speak directly to them, but
we cannot, but
I'll
go
just
right
make
ahead.
a comment.
Go right ahead.
It's always awesome when our partners come bearing gifts. So I'm just saying, if anyone doesn't want their cookies, I'll be more than happy to take them. Bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Shad. Thank you. We can't directly respond to anyone who comes before us, but we always appreciate folks who take the time to come and speak to us. No one has to be here. It's a sacrifice of your time to be here, and we appreciate it. Thank you for speaking to us. At this time, we will move on to item 9.1, our legislative update. Mr. Shad.
Thank you, Madam Chair. While the General Assembly they were back in session on last week, there was nothing noteworthy to bring to our attention at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shad. And we keep the legislative update on our agenda as a standing item, because we want to make sure that the public knows that we are monitoring the things that go on at the State House, the things that go on legislatively directly and indirectly impact what we do here, our budget, namely, and other bills and policies and things of that nature. So we keep it on our agenda, and if there's something to report, great, and if not, at least you know that it's on our radar. So thank you very much, Mr. Shad. At this time, we will move on to item 10, voting on executive session items. Item 10.1, adult education request. Actually, it's plural. There are two of them. We will entertain a motion at this time.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Elkins Johnson.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the student admissions request into the district adult education program.
Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. Is there a second at this time? Second. Thank you. Dr. Caution Parker, any discussion? If not, all those wishing to vote, please vote at this time. By a vote of 7-0, the motion passes. Likewise, we'll move on to item 10.2, student appeals. We will be happy to entertain a motion at this time.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Elkins Johnson.
I'd like to make a motion on student appeals number 1, that the student attend Blythewood Academy.
Is there a second? The motion has been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion at this time? If not, all those wishing to vote, please vote. Has my vote been registered? Because I don't think I meant to hit whatever button popped up.
It didn't come up.
It hasn't? Okay, thank you.
Did yours come up? Okay. Did yours come up? Didn't come up. Oh, just popped up. So you have to go back out.
Trying again. Have you gotten everyone's vote now?
Yeah.
Has everyone wishing to vote cast their vote at this time? Okay. Do you need to reset the vote?
Oh, I wonder if we need to refresh.
You want to reset it? Sure. All those, we'll do a hand vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, likewise. By a vote of 5-2, the motion fails. Is there another motion at this time?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Plank.
I move that we deny the appeal for student number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Plank. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Oh, now it pops up. Thank you. If not, please cast your votes at this time. Should we try electronically, Ms. Sherman? Okay, thank you. By a vote of 5-2, the motion carries. With regard to student number 2,
Madam
will receive a
Chair.
motion at this time. Dr. Elkins Johnson.
I'd like to make a motion for student number 2, Blythewood Academy.
Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. Is there a second? Without a second, the motion will fail. Is there another motion to be made at this time?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Agostini.
I move that we deny the appeal for student number 2.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Is there a second? Dr. Caution Parker. It's been moved and properly seconded that the appeal be denied. Is there any discussion? If not, all those wishing to vote, please cast your vote at this time. By a vote of 6-1, the motion carries. Student number 3 will entertain a motion at this time.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Elkins Johnson.
I'd like to make a motion for student number 3, Blythewood Academy.
Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. Is there a second? Without a second, the motion fails. Is there an alternative
Madam
motion at
Chair.
this time? Mr. Plank.
I'd like to make a motion that we deny the appeal and uphold the district's administrative decision on student number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Plank. Is there a second at this time?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Caution Parker. The motion has been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all those wishing to vote, please cast your votes at this time. By a vote of 6-1, the motion carries. Moving on to student number 4, we'll entertain a motion at this time.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Elkins Johnson.
I'd like to make a motion for student number 4, Blythewood Academy.
Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Shad. Is there any discussion? The motion has been made and properly seconded. All those wishing to vote, please cast your votes at this time. By a vote of 4-3, the motion fails. Is there an alternative motion at this time?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Manning?
I make a motion that we uphold the district's recommendation and deny the appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Is there any discussion? If not, all those wishing to vote, please cast your votes at this time. Excuse me. By a vote of 5-2, the motion carries. At this time, we'll move on to item 11,
Madam
old
Chair,
business.
if
Dr.
I
Elkins
could just-
Johnson.
Yes, if I can just make a comment about the emotions. As you noticed, that we were totally divided, and that's okay. But I just want people to understand that when it comes to student discipline and to student safety, I know that school safety is our #1 priority. I get that. But as an educator of 29 years, I do understand that students come to us with so many issues, so many problems, mental health. So my goal is always to try to keep as many students in our school setting as possible. But sometimes that's impossible. But you'll see that I'm always so very supportive of trying to do what I can, every time I can, to make sure that our students are in our school settings. Because we know, if you go back and you look at research, or if you just talk to parents and talk to students, so many of our students, when they're not in our school setting, they're out in the community, and they're getting in trouble. They're robbing, they're stealing, and they're getting in trouble. So when you look at this vote, just know that when I vote this way, I want our students in our school setting, because I'm a mother hen, and we're very protective of making sure that our students remain in a school setting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. I will say that the reason that our student information is confidential is because there's a lot that goes into these decisions that we make. They're difficult decisions. As a parent myself, and as all of us who are advocating for students, we want the very best for our students. We want our students educated. We also want our students safe. So we're advocating for all students who are in the schools. So just know that the reason that this information is confidential is because there's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot in the backdrop that we can't share with you all, but these are tough decisions that are made. But there's a lot that goes into the decisions that we made. But thank you all for supporting us and hanging in there as we plod through this. Bless you all. Item 11, old business action requested. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the board, we have before you an old business item requested. We are seeking approval for policy revisions DI, DIE, DKC, AC, GBA, GCE, GCEC, GCF, and GDF. That's non-discrimination, equal opportunity, fiscal accounting audits, expense authorization reimbursement, open hiring, equal employment opportunity, affirmative action, professional staff recruitment, professional staff hiring, support staff hiring, and posting and advertising of professional vacancies.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. This is an action item. We've been over these policies before. If there aren't any questions or concerns at this time, I'll entertain a motion. Mrs. Agostini?
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
no, my microphone isn't working. Okay.
It may have been too many times. Try again.
It's dead. So, Madam Chair, I move to approve policies DI, DIE, DKC, AC, GBA, GCE, GCF, GDF, and to amend policy GCEC, the last paragraph, to read, "The administration will post all job vacancies for at least 5 business days." Thank you.
Madam Chair, second on that.
Madam Chair,
I said I second that motion.
Discussion at
Yes.
this time?
yes, I would like to go back to policy DKC. Is there any way we can get it pulled up?
Where's that?
DKC,
Let's-
expense authorization
Okay,
reimbursement.
let's finish. We've got a motion on the floor. We need to dispense with the motion that we have on the floor.
Well, before
first.
we make the motion, we should have had a discussion before you made a motion. It should have been open for discussion, then motions.
But no,
No, it's reversed.
yeah, we're having
It's
discussion
motion,
period.
Second, discussion.
And then discussion.
now we can discuss. So you're right. We're
Go ahead,
discussing.
go ahead.
If we can get it pulled up on the screen, is there a possible? We don't have it where you guys can pull it up. I don't know. Okay. If not, they're
Which-
working on it.
Which paragraph?
If not,
Which
let me just
paragraph?
go
Which
back. I
paragraph?
wanted to go back where it says that the employee or
I'm sorry.
board member may be responsible for reimbursement, reimbursing the district for monies not refundable. And I wanted to have a discussion about that.
Madam Chairman,
What
for
do you mean
clarification, may I
before-
get the policy that's being
Oh,
discussed?
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's DKC, is that correct?
DKC.
And Dr. Elkins Johnson, I apologize. I thought you were referring to another policy. I apologize. Yeah, go right ahead. DKC, expense authorization reimbursement, do we all have it pulled up? My apologies. Go right, proceed. Which paragraph are you referring to, Dr. Elkins
I
Johnson?
am referring to the last paragraph.
Okay,
Just
what's
the
your
part that
decision?
says the employee or board member may be responsible for reimbursing the district for monies not refundable. And that's not clear, because when you say may be responsible, yes or no, I mean, what does that mean? Maybe. What are some of the criterias of may be responsible?
Madam Chair, just so that I can be on
Mr.
the same
Blake.
page, I'm looking at the last paragraph and it starts, if cancellations are necessary. Can you, for one more
I got it.
time, just clarify the
Thank you.
policy, please? Are we on DKC?
Yes.
Last paragraph?
It's the last paragraph. I
Okay,
think
thank you.
the very
See it?
last
I
sentence.
see it now, thank you.
Okay.
And are you asking for clarification, Dr.
Yes,
Elkins
I'm
Johnson, or do
asking
you
for
have a
cla-
recommendation?
Well, no, I'm asking for clarification
Okay.
because I'm not clear. It says may be responsible. So I guess my question is, if I sign up to go on a conference and I become ill, will I have to reimburse? Okay,
Responsible.
but it says maybe, so how would I know what causes you to have to reimburse and what does not? Because we're not
Be
clear.
up to your supervisor.
We are the supervisors.
Be up to you.
Dr. Davis worked for us. We don't work for Dr. Davis.
To be honest, I can't remember whether that is detailed any further in our regs or not. I really can't remember. We haven't had this occur, I think, but once since I've been here, and it was due to an illness, and we reimbursed we paid for the expenses. So I'll have to admit.
I would like for us to table this and come back when we get more clarification, because that's not clear. Because right now, it's subject to,
Well,
we've got a motion on the
To your
floor.
wishes, whatever the board wishes, it's your policy. We'll be glad to amend it as you see fit.
well, I would ask the board to be considerate to go back to revisit this policy so we can be clear, because we need to know when we have to reimburse, or what are the circumstances that will cause us to have to reimburse the district, or what's not. An illness, is that one? Or if you just decide at the last minute that you don't want to go, that's when you reimburse. I think we need to be clear on this policy.
Again, however you want it to be clear, we're
Mrs. Agostini?
Well, I guess my question is, people are looking to me. Do I make a new motion, or
Yes.
how do we?
Madam
Mrs.
Chair.
Agostini,
dispense
if you
with-
would just make a new motion and table this.
We've got to dispense with the motion that's on the floor. We have a motion on the floor, you can't just table it. We have to dispense with the motion that's on the floor. And then if the motion fails, then we can certainly come back to
We should
it.
have had a motion on the table until we discuss.
Madam Chair.
She made a motion. Yeah,
Madam
it's already, the motion's been made and it's been properly seconded, so we have to dispense with the motion that's on the floor. Let me ask a question while we're in a discussion period. I guess my presumption, and perhaps that's a fallacy in and of itself, is it says may, I guess, in order to, because I'm thinking if you schedule a conference and then you just don't go because you don't want to, then
We normally would not
it would,
reimburse.
yes, it would be
You
presumptive
chose
for the,
not to
for the
go.
board member to reimburse
And this allows us to reimburse you under certain circumstances.
if you're sick or things like that. And so what I think I hear you saying, Dr. Elkins Johnson, is that you want it to be specific, that it
I
says
do.
that if you're unable to go for a reason that is unpreventable,
Right,
that you wouldn't have, okay.
absolutely.
And we would just
Because-
need to make sure we understand what you want to mean as unpreventable.
Right, because may be responsible, that's
Well,
pulling
we
straws.
wouldn't, I wouldn't think that you would want, again, it's your policy. I
Right.
wouldn't think you would want to say that it's always reimbursable, because then we might have people
Precisely.
declining at the last minute and incurring expenses for people deciding not to go to conferences. So whatever y'all prefer and wish it to, the language to be, we'll be glad to amend it.
Is there any further discussion? Mr. Manning?
Madam Chair, I'd like for us to dispense with the motion that's been made and seconded and take the vote.
Mrs. Agostini? Would you
I'm
repeat
sorry,
your-
Madam Chair.
Mrs. Agostini, I would like for you to go back and re-amend your motion.
Can I withdraw the motion and make a new motion?
Hold on, just a second, Mr. Shad. I'll get you just a second.
Well, first, I think she can. I believe since it's her motion, she can.
She
But
can
I was
withdraw.
also going to bring up, in her motion, Mrs. Agostini moved to approve all the policies except one, and we're on final reading. So the one that she is asking to amend or moving to amend, if that carries, I still think this would then be the first reading of the amended motion, of the amended policy. So therefore, I don't think we can vote on all of them in total anyway. I think we would have to provide second reading if the motion carries. So I think it's appropriate for her to have done two motions, one to carry all the other policies, and then, as we say, pull that
Pull
one
it out.
out, because now this would be a first reading for the 5-day change instead of 3 days.
Madam Chair,
Mr.
from a
Plank?
point of order, I believe that once it's been seconded, it is no longer belongs to the member, it belongs to the chair, and action would be taken. And if I believe that the motion made included the amendment as stated, so I believe the motion's in order.
And the amendment you wanted, what amendment did you want, Mrs. Agostini? If you could repeat?
The amendment is to policy GCEC, the last paragraph reading, "The administration will post all job vacancies for at least 5 business days."
I've got you. That motion is on the floor. It has been seconded. Dr. Elkins Johnson, your concern is with DKC at this time? Okay, then we have a motion on the floor. If you wish to withdraw the motion, Mrs. Agostini, only you can do that, or we can move forward with the motion that is on the floor.
If I withdraw the motion, can I make a new motion? Yes, I'll withdraw the
You
motion
can.
then.
You can.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Would you like to make a new motion at this time?
I would,
Or-
thank you.
Tell you what, would anyone be averse to voting on these policies one at a time tonight? Would anyone be averse to that?
No, and thank you so much, Madam Chair, because I've been asking for that for a while, that we pile in 7 and 8 and 9 policies. We should be voting on these policies individual, so when we have concerns, or if we want to go back and make amendments, we're able to do that instead of lumping them all into one and then quickly making a second motion to voting.
Well, not a problem. We do that typically because it's a second reading. We've had a chance to go over the policies, and it's a lot. It's a lot of policies to go over individually each time. So we do ask that we vote on them as a group because we've had 2 opportunities to go over them. But
And Madam
You want to
Chair,
start with
let
the
me
AC?
just
Want to start with the
say
AC?
say this one. And I understand what you're saying, but again, we have different people who come to different board meetings, so they may not have been here for the last reading, and they don't even understand or know what the policies are. So out of respect for the people that take time from their busy schedule to come here and be with us, we should at least list each policy, so as they sit out and allow us to entertain them with this information, they should see exactly what we're voting on and why we're voting on this, or the changes that we want to make. When we're talking about changes, they have no idea as to what we're talking about. We know, but the people who are watching and the people who are sitting out here are clueless.
Is there a motion to be made at this time?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Agostini?
I move to approve policy AC.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Shad. It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion with regard to policy AC? If not, we'll vote at this time.
Madam Chair, is this vote coming as a block right now?
It's not. It's individual, Mr.
It's
Plank.
individual.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing it on my screen as a block.
I think mine came up as AC. You've got a block as well? Motion to approve policy AC. Okay, thank you. By a vote of 7-0, the motion carries. Is there a motion with regard to DIE?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Manning,
I make a motion that we approve DI.DIE fiscal accounting audits as recommended by the district administration.
thank you, Mr. Manning. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Manning?
I want to encourage our folks out there, we have free Wi-Fi. Anybody who would like to log on to the free Wi-Fi, the policies are all posted online. So those who are following online or following here, please feel free. I mean, I know it would be easier if it was on the screen, but I just do want to make sure people know that
Yes.
these aren't secret policies. They are out there posted for everybody to see.
And we're posted in
so
advance.
Please,
And
yeah,
they're
please,
posted in
please do
advance.
go follow those. If you don't have a device, I'll let you use my phone. So.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. And all of our policies, our board agenda, all of our attachments are posted in advance. So we don't just pop them up here tonight. They're actually posted in advance every week that we have a board meeting. So you feel free to log on to see the same things that we're discussing. Thank you. And we've gotten a pop-up. Yeah, it looks as if the motions are being delineated individually. It's just got that block at the top that I think we can't do anything about, and that's okay. By a vote of 7-0, the motion carries. Is there a motion with regard to policy DKC at this time?
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Plank?
I move we approve DKC as stated by the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Plank. Is there a second? If there's no second, the motion fails. I'll be happy to entertain another motion at this time with regard to policy DKC.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Elkins Johnson.
I'd like to make a motion that we table policy DKC, expense authorization reimbursement, until we get more clarification.
I think what you want to do is carry it over until we get more, table it as dead.
Yes.
You want to carry it
We
over
can
until we
carry
get
it
more
over.
information? To
Absolutely.
the next board meeting? Is that what
Yes.
you'd like to do?
That would be fine.
Is there a second at this time? Second. Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. The motion has been made and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all those wishing to vote, please cast your vote at this time. By a vote of 7-0, the motion carries. Moving right along to policy GBA. Is there a motion at this time?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Agostini.
I move that we approve policy GBA, open hiring, equal employment opportunity, and affirmative action.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Shad. It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, will all those wishing to vote please cast your vote at this time? By a vote of 7-0, the motion unanimously carries. Moving on to item GCE. Is there a motion to be considered at this time?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Agostini.
I move to approve policy GCE, professional staff recruitment.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Elkins Johnson, second. Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion at this time? If not, all those wishing to cast your vote, please do so at this time with regard to policy GCE. By a vote of 7-0, the motion carries. Next policy up for consideration is policy GDF. Is there a motion to be considered at this time? Don't all speak at once.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Agostini.
I move to approve policy GDF, support staff hiring.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion to be had at this time? Hearing none, all those wishing to cast your vote, please do so at this time. By a vote of 7-0, the motion unanimously carries. And finally, we've arrived at policy GCEC. Is there a motion to be made at this time?
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Agostini.
I move to approve policy GCEC, posting and advertising of professional vacancies with the following amendment to the last paragraph. The administration will post all job vacancies for at least 5 business days.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Plank. Is there any discussion? And hearing none, I do. I have a question. I have no problem with this. Is there any reason that the staff would want it to be 3 days? Or I'm fine with it as it is. Is there any reason that it would need to be 3? Because I'm fine with 5.
Madam Chair, policy is board policy. Whatever the board's desire is,
I know
the
that. I wanted
administration
to
will
understand
carry
why
DD
it's
out.
3.
As is, yes, ma'am. We can carry out the policy as stated by Ms. Agostini.
I appreciate it. But when I'm making decisions, I like to understand why it is what it is before I make a change. So thank you for sharing with me, Dr. Davis. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those wishing to cast their vote, please do so at this time. By a vote of 7-0, the motion unanimously carries. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mrs.
did
Agostini.
we do policy GCF?
Did we skip that? When I say we, no. GCF, did I skip that? Did I skip it? My apologies. At this time, we'll entertain a motion with regard to GCF. Thank you, Mrs. Agostini.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Agostini.
I move to approve policy GCF, professional staff hiring.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. It's been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those wishing to cast their votes, please do so at this time. Can't imagine how I would have skipped one. Can't imagine. Thank you for catching that, Mrs. Agostini. By a vote of 7-0, the motion unanimously carries, and I believe we have dispensed of all of our policies, have we not? All right. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item 11.2, Community Eligibility Provision of the Healthy, Hunger-Free Kids Act of 2010. Dr. Davis.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the district is asking, administration is asking that you accept and adopt this resolution, and that's been provided for you in your board doc information. Dr. Franklin.
Thank you, Dr. Davis.
During the 2018 legislative session, the General Assembly enacted a proviso directing school districts to identify students in poverty and increase their access to free school meals by directly certifying them eligible for free and reduced priced meals. The Community Eligibility Provision, CEP, allows all students in a school to receive meals free of charge if a minimum of 40% of the enrolled students qualify for free school meals, with the district absorbing 31.5% of the cost. The School Boards Association recommends that districts adopt the resolution indicating their participation in CEP. The resolution drafted by district administration specifies our current participation. Jackson Creek, Keels, Condor, and Windsor Elementary Schools are eligible for CEP and are participating. These are our schools with the highest poverty indices in the district. The district is absorbing the cost of their participation in CEP through the general fund. Dent, Forest Lake, Killian, and Polo Road are eligible but are not participating as it is currently cost prohibitive. The district's remaining schools are not eligible for CEP participation.
Thank you, Dr. Franklin. Is there a motion with regard? This action item. Hang on one second, I've lost my place.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Manning, give me 1 sec. Mr. Manning.
Yeah, I'm on 11.2.
I'm sorry?
No, I was just making sure I get my resolution or my motion here correct. So,
Okay, okay.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution as recommended by the district.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Carson Parker. Is there any discussion at this time?
Madam
just have-
Chair?
Mrs.
Whoops.
Agostini.
I'm just wondering why the schools are, it's cost prohibitive. Can you share with us why? For Dent and the second line of schools that are not getting the free?
Sure. So it's 40% to qualify, but that's direct certification. And it doesn't mean you fill out an application. That means you get direct certification through like food stamps, for example. So those schools, they do hit that, but in order to get 100% reimbursement from the federal government, your direct certification percentage needs to get about 67%. Their percentages are not that high, and so, for example, if we did those schools, our monthly, what we'd have to pay per month to fund those last 4 schools would be $193,000 a month out of the general fund for that with the district would have to cost. So that's why it's not cost prohibitive.
Thank
Or
you.
it is cost prohibitive for us to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Are there any other questions or comments with
Madam
regard?
Chair.
Mr. Manning?
Is that 193 in total, or 193,000 for each of those schools?
That's for those 4 schools that.
So that's
per
for all
month.
4? And
Yes,
what
for all
are we
4.
currently paying for the schools that do have the full participation?
We're eating about 2% of the cost for those other 4 schools. So about 98% total, a little over 98% is covered from federal reimbursements. So we as a district, pay about, it's about 1.7% of the total meals. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head what that is, but.
Okay, I think last time I heard a number of like over 300,000 maybe. Maybe that's changed.
We didn't pay that much for
Okay.
last year was 100% all the way, but this year we adding Jackson Creek and a couple of changes, it's 98%, a little over 98% that is covered from federal reimbursements and state reimbursements, and then we have to foot the cost the bill of basically 1-point-something%. But I can get the exact.
So it would be 190,000 to do the full meal for all students at that.
190,000 would
For
be
Dent,
for Dent,
Forest Lake.
Forest Lake, Killian, and Polo per month for breakfast and lunch.
Per
So
month.
per month. So those 4 schools that get free breakfast and free lunch.
So
And
for the math challenge, what would that be in a year?
$2.4 million, is that right? No?
2.4 million?
Well, it'll be on a 12-month basis, it'll be about $2.4 million.
Yeah, so make it a 9 months, so
9 months, so 9 month,
1.8.
$1.8 million. And what do we have in our reserve fund right now?
Probably about. Well, that would be spending one-time money on recurring expenses, but we have about 40-something, $42 million in the fund balance.
So that would be an ongoing cost. So if we took out a reserve, it would be something every year we'd have to
Correct.
eat.
So
So,
it'd be a recurring expense.
okay, so it sounds like a good idea up front, but then the issue is the recurring component to that.
Correct.
Which would eat away at our reserve fund and cause us problems in the future.
Well, we wouldn't have it in the budget this year to begin with, but we would have to, if we didn't have it in the budget this year, but if we didn't place it in the budget next year, we'd have to take it out of reserve fund again.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
And I think something else to keep in mind
I
is this
gotcha.
is, per year as well, so we're assuming that they'll continue to fund this every year as well.
Dr. Elkins, are you done, Mr. Manning? Dr. Elkins Johnson?
My question is, does this have anything to do with parents not completing the free lunch form? Or that has nothing to do with it? Because I know a lot of times students may qualify for free lunch, but they bring their lunch, so parents don't complete the free lunch application. Is that part of it?
So this helps where families do not have to fill out a free and reduced lunch application, but this is direct certification. And so you don't, direct certification, you don't have to fill out a form anyway. So those 4 schools have enough families that directly qualify for free and reduced lunch meals. So it doesn't matter if more kids fill out the application, which we really want them to fill out the application because they can get free meals, but it's all about direct certification. So getting that direct certified from the state through, there's several factors, but the primary one I always talk about is the food stamps, which is not the correct terminology, but it's the
SNAP benefits,
program.
SNAP benefits.
Thank you very much. So it doesn't matter if 100 more people apply, it's not going to make them direct certified. Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Madam
All right.
Chair.
Mr. Plank?
I just wanted to just add clarity for the benefit of those who are here on that reserve fund, just if I may, because that reserve fund, although it may have a significant amount of funds in it, is really designed from a cash flow perspective to keep us from going into debt. And if we are short in particular months, based on the way that school finance is funded. And if we were to use, as you said, one-time money, this reserve to continue an ongoing expense, and we could run into issues where our cash flow could, in theory, be negative if we don't have the float from the reserve fund. That reserve fund, of course, keeps us in a much better financial position to allow for the rating of our bonds and things of that sort that are critical to minimizing the impact on the taxpayer should we need those type funds. Am I accurate on that?
That's correct. In fact, one of the first questions they always ask in rating firms that come and rate our credit is, did you use any general fund balance to fund operations?
Yeah.
It's a regular question they ask. It's good when we say no.
Right.
If you say yes, they get interested.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that was clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Plank. Are there any other questions or concerns?
Madam Chair,
Mr. Shad?
very quickly. There are, as I understand it, some districts other than ours that actually promote the fact that they are able to provide free and reduced meals to all of their students. Our district has some qualifying schools with this program, but the vast majority don't qualify, and there's really just 2 others, 4 that definitely qualify where they meet the minimum standard of 40% of the schools that qualify. Is that correct? Those 4.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then we have a second level where they qualify, meaning at least 40%, but because of their situation, we would not be reimbursed that 98%, and we have to eat that cost, which is obviously cost prohibitive because it's coming from our general fund. Nevertheless, the children who don't qualify in our district will still not go without a meal, because even if they are unable to pay or their parent or guardian is unable to pay their bill, the school will still provide a meal. It won't be the regular menu that they pay for, but these, not one child, as I understand it right, will not go without food.
That's correct, sir. We actually, we expanded a little bit of our procedures this year. So at elementary and middle school, you can, if you're having some hardships, you can charge, but we actually did away with the alternative meal.
Okay.
So there's no more cheese sandwiches anymore. You can have the exact same thing. So we did away with that. It was not working, and that's just we just did away with that. At high school, we have given a little bit more grace period because it was $0 and now up to $10. But we do want to put a little bit more ownership on the high school students. But we encourage our staffs to not allow a child to go hungry. So, and the biggest change is we took away the alternative meal.
So they still get a healthy meal just like the rest of their students,
Yes, sir.
their fellow students.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shad. If I could say something, I want to thank you all for taking the time to go through this resolution. I know we talked about it last time and wanted to get a little more clarity. You've worded it well so that we understand it well. Things like student hunger is a serious thing. You don't take for granted that people have a roof over their head or food to eat or clothes to wear. So this is a serious issue. Things like having done away with alternative meals, I appreciate that. I know that was a big source of contention in the meal that students will all eat, but it casts a negative dispersion on kids who had to eat an alternative meal. I appreciate that. And even I was a parent, and sometimes my lunch account, for my kids would get low because I'd forget. And then you get a call from the school saying that they can't eat. So yeah, I got some problems. Had some problems there. So I appreciate the consideration and the grace period that you've extended to students, because very few kids are paying their own way. Those are their parents. If their parents are unable to pay, or like me, have ever forgotten, then we don't want the kids to have to bear the brunt of that. So I appreciate you taking the time to explain this. And Mr. Shad, I think you were alluding to some other districts that across the state who are able to provide, free meals for their entire district. That's based on a whole lot of factors. Poverty index, these factors at most of their schools are high. These percentages at most of their schools are high. So it's kind of like comparing apples and oranges. So we're doing the very best we can. I'm thankful that we're making sure that students eat in our district, and that no situation is perfect, but I'm thankful for the progress that we're making and listening to our parents, like parents who had a concern with alternative meals. We listened, and that's different now. So I appreciate you taking the time to explain. This is extremely important. Student hunger and homelessness and a myriad of other services that we just take for granted are nothing to be taken for granted. So thank you for taking the time to explain this so thoroughly to us. Are there any questions or concerns at this time? Thank you for your presentation. This is an action item, I believe. And so I will be happy to, that was a discussion period. All those wishing to vote, please cast your votes at this time. The motion has been made. By a vote of 7-0, the motion unanimously carries, for the resolution, rather. Moving on to item 12, old business, no action. How about this? Old business, no action requested. Item 12.1, policy proposal DDB, online fundraising, campaigns, crowdfunding, and I believe this was carried over to this board meeting because we wanted to get a little more clarification. Dr. Davis.
Ditto.
Dr. Miley.
Dr. Miley.
Ditto. We had, my understanding was that we wanted to answer two questions. One, was it just certified or all district employees? And we recommend deleting the word certified so that it'll apply to all district employees, whether they're certified or not, or other employees. Second was the question of whether students were covered. Students are not covered If it's a school-associated sponsored event, we think the teacher or employee should be the lead person to apply for the fundraising event, crowdfunding thing. If it's a student and it's not related to the district, we don't have any control or say-so of what they do outside the district anyway. But if it's school-related, we think the teacher should be taking the lead. So we have not addressed students directly because students, if it's not a school event, they can do it on their own, and that's out of our control. And if it's a school-related event, we think the teacher should be in charge of applying for the crowdfunding permission.
Thank you, Dr. Miley. And since we're in a period of getting clarification, I don't think we have to have a motion to find out if there are any other questions or concerns, because this was a clarifying issue. So are there any other questions or concerns, or has it been clarified adequately? Mrs. Agostini.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification of the policy that it doesn't pertain to students, but just as a parent and being on social media, I haven't seen it yet this year, but in the past, I have seen student requests from organizations. How are we going to monitor that? For example, a UN group posting that they're going someplace. How do we monitor when they're saying, support our travel? How will we monitor that or deal with it?
We would recommend that we don't. Again, it would be like a booster club. We don't manage booster clubs and organizations like that. So if it's a student raising funds for something, it might be somewhat school-related, but it's not school-sponsored, and they're trying to raise money for themselves, we would recommend that we stay out of trying to govern that individual's actions.
If I could point out a little piece of clarification, in the policy, it does state that any individual who has not obtained the express written permission of an authorized district representative may not solicit donations of funds or materials on behalf of the district of any crowdfunding platform. And so they cannot, you have the ability to use the school trademark, they can't use the school's name, whether they're a student or anyone in the community. If we find anyone using our trademarks, our school names, we can ask them to cease and desist from using that, because those belong to the Richland School District 2. If it is a student and they refuse to do it, then the student would be faced with some sort of a consequence. But if it is a community member, then we would have to turn that over to the appropriate authority. So the section that says any individual who has not obtained the express written permission, I think comes back to what Dr. Miley's suggestion is, that if the students are a part of an organization, say HOSA or basketball team, if they did not get the express written permission from an authorized district official, which would be their school principal or assistant principal who's responsible for student services, then they would have to cease and desist from doing that.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Dr. Elkins-Johnson.
That's a good point, Dr. Davis. Thank you for that. But my question is, do we have something like this in the student handbook or the parent handbook so they can be made aware of that? Because I know students are not going to take time to read what our policy is. So have we taken the time to place this in the student handbook or the parent handbook to make them aware of it?
We've not taken the time to place this in the student handbook at this time.
We just got the policy. Do you want to recommend?
I would love to recommend that moving forward.
In fact, we would recommend that we develop some guidelines for this. If this becomes policy, we would recommend some guidelines to give it more clarity and definition in terms of what needs to be done, what the application looks like, et cetera.
And just as a reminder, this is a new policy,
Yes, so
and
it's
so
not gonna be
therefore we
anywhere.
don't have one. We hadn't had to address this yet. So as a part of this policy, typically there will be an administrative rule that then will be shared. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Dr. Elkins-Johnson. Are there any other questions or concerns at this time? Mr. Manning.
Madam Chairman, so since this is a new policy and we haven't advertised it, would this go into effect this year or go into effect next year?
I have no idea.
Once it's approved, immediately.
Okay, it was kind of, I understand how it works. It was just another nice way of asking, because the question came up, how do we advertise it, how do we do it? So I guess I was really trying to get at the fact that if it is right away,
Yes.
then we need to think about how that gets pushed out. And also, I can get pulled over for a speeding ticket, but I don't have to get a ticket. I can get a warning, right? So you can get a grace period. So again, my question is, would it be effective immediately as far as stopping it, or,
Understood.
Because it'll take us some time to develop those guidelines.
Right.
Actually, right now, very busy with our audit, so we would hope that this would take a little while to be implemented as a full policy. Have some time to talk to you.
Okay, and by the way, I don't make it a habit of speeding and getting warning tickets, but I just, okay, so that helps. Even though it would go into effect immediately, we would not enforce it immediately until we had the opportunity to properly vet it, make sure we understand it, the implementation, and the information be distributed appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. As a point of clarification, just so it doesn't look like we're being irresponsible and pushing out a policy that we're not able to enforce, this was recommended by the South Carolina School Boards Association, and most of our policies that are being revised have typically, there's some that we clean up, internally with the housekeeping, but most of our policies that are being, radically overhauled, or this is a new policy, have been recommended by the South Carolina School Boards Association. So we're just following orders and trying to be compliant to make sure that we visit the policy, but just so that people don't think we're being irresponsible to put a policy out here that we're not able to enforce at this time. Mrs. Agostini.
Thank you,
Okay.
Madam Chair. And I just wanted for us to take into consideration as we're going to implement this policy, and if it is approved, we're coming upon our high schools' winter days and holiday celebrations. And I do know that several high schools use the crowdfunding in different capacities to support these programs. So I'm hopeful if we pass it, we're ready to execute or have a plan to deal with that.
Dr. Davis.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini.
Just as a point of information, we
I've got you.
have been addressing this from an administrative standpoint for years since crowdsourcing has been out. So we just have not had a policy. So I don't want to give the impression that we've not been allowing crowdsourcing and addressing it if it's been used inappropriately. We have had situations where it has been used inappropriately, and we have addressed those teachers or individuals who may have been doing so without the consent or express consent from their school principal or their directors. That also includes students who may be using it for winter days or holiday celebrations. They are typically going through their student activities directors and their principals and receiving approval. So the policy would support that, even if once it's created or approved, we would just make sure no one's doing it. Right now, we're making sure no one's doing it without the principal's consent anyway, just as an administrative practice. This is just going to give us a policy to support what we've already done. So we will be not held responsible should someone use this to receive money and it's actually not for the school. This policy will allow us to not be held, we have a policy to support us on that.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Dr. Elkins-Johnson?
Yes, and I was just going to ask, Dr. Molly mentioned that they don't have the time to go back to really implement this policy and to do what we need to do with it. Do you think we need to hold off on the policy? Because once we vote on it, it becomes policy, and if you don't have the time to, effectively monitor this, is this something we need to just come back, revisit?
If you adopt the policy, we'll get moving on the guidelines, yes. Well, again, it depends on the effective date of the policy.
Right.
And so we'll move as fast as we can.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. If you guys don't really have the time, we're not trying to force you guys to do something, because this is a new policy, and maybe this is something we need to consider at a later time when you guys have time. And I'm just throwing that out there.
Yes, ma'am.
You
No,
guys
ma'am.
just share.
Once the policy is approved, again, we are already enforcing it through
Okay.
administrative practice now. The policy would just be a policy, and then we will have to write the administrative rule. But until the administrative rule is complete, we'll continue to enforce the administrative practices that we've already been doing. So we'll be fine. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair.
Or questions? Mr. Shad?
Dr. Davis, I appreciate you saying that you are already doing it now, but did I understand that it's the principal who is making the approval now for the crowdfunding?
It should be the principal or an authorized individual at the school level. So typically, it could be a student activities director who may be operating as an agent of the principal or an authorized person at the principal. So I would think, for example, if we were talking about our holiday celebrations, that a principal is aware that there are a group of students who are using a crowdfunding source to receive money for holiday wishes, and that is being assigned to their club, which has a account that money is transferred into at the school level.
Okay.
If that is not taking place, and we have had situations where that has not taken place, once that was brought to our attention, we have addressed that employee for doing that without getting the approval of their principal. So that's what we've been practicing probably since 2000, at least in my knowledge, it's been since 2014, because that's the first incident I dealt with personally.
All right, here's the confusion. It is my understanding that there is a teacher who wanted to get funding for a program in the school, obviously for the school, for the students, and put it out there on a social media platform and started asking for donations. Got a response as to, okay, what do we do? How do we do it? This employee responded, hold on, because I need to get approval. So I appreciate them doing that. Then the next day, they said, essentially in their way, can someone start giving? I appreciate what we're saying. I know you're saying you all are doing it, but that's just at least one example where there's a teacher out there already doing this school year. I don't know if it was approved or not, but at least gave the impression that things were placed on hold, and then the very next day or 2 days later, it's like, okay, why aren't y'all sending the money? And I just don't know as of right now whether that money's going directly to that teacher. I don't know if it's going to the school. Yeah, I just don't know.
It was not approved. I can speak directly to that. I know that's off kind of, but that situation was not approved. And I think it is imperative why it's important that this policy be supported as quickly as possible so that we can make sure that we have policy to support our already actions. But I do not think the policy will deter people from doing what they're going to do. The policy allows us to address it according to the direction of the board as the board sets the policy. So this will give us some, I guess, support or backing that this is against district policy. Right now, it wasn't technically against district policy, but it is against our practice, and it's not fiscally sound to do something like that. That was addressed. That was not a principal approved, and once the principal found out, it was addressed.
And thank you for that. And I do see in the policy that it says that if they haven't received the written permission, then I just don't see the consequence yet from our policy. I know there's going to be an administrative rule, but from our policy, what's the consequence if someone goes outside of did not get the express permission? If this goes through, and I do understand the urgency as well, because some programs have things that they're about to handle, and this,
It's a personnel. It becomes a personnel matter, and it's handled as any personnel matter would be when a personnel operates outside of policy. But we don't express the actual consequence in policy for personnel.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
That's a good question, Mr. Shad. I was thinking the same thing. We're setting the policy. That's up to them. Yeah, to enforce it. That's a good question. Oh, thank you. Are there any other questions or concerns at this time? If not, shall we? Oh, there's no action requested. We have one more reading. All right. Moving on to item 13, new business, no action requested. Proposal of policy revisions to GCO, Evaluation of Administrative Staff, and GCC/GDC, Employee Personnel Leaves and Absences. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Franklin will share, along with Dr. Karen Lovett, will share with you the proposals for the following policies: GCO, which is Evaluation of Administrative Staff; GCC/GDC, which is Employee Personal Leaves and Absences.
Policies GCO, Evaluation of Administrative Staff, and GCC/GDC, Employee Leaves and Absences, are part of the 2018 Policy and Legislative Update. The proposed changes to policy GCO clarify that PADEP is the instrument approved by the State Department of Education with which we evaluate principals. Policy GCC/GDC is also part of the 2018 Policy and Legislative Update as a result of the General Assembly's provision allowing school districts to pay teachers for unused leave. As this practice is already in place in Richland 2, no changes were needed in that regard. However, while reviewing the policy, the administration discussed needed changes to the bereavement leave section of the policy, which is on page 6, We propose adding step relatives to the tier of relatives for whom an employee may receive 3 days of paid bereavement leave. With the exception of the bereavement leave change, all other yellow highlights in the policy proposal are formatting changes only, not material changes.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Franklin. Is there any discussion at this
Madam
time or
Chair.
questions? Mr. Plank?
I would just jump to GDC, the employee leaves and absences. In
Page
the
6.
Pardon?
Where are you? I'm sorry.
I'm on that first page of GDC.
Okay.
First page, basically the third paragraph, or the first paragraph after the bullets. And this may be splitting hairs, but I notice we've stricken, therefore, the board expects employees to come to work every day, and we've replaced it with, therefore, the board encourages regular attendance of all employees. Personally, I expect my team to be there every day at my office. I don't encourage them. I expect them. So I'm just curious why that was changed.
Right, and that one was just taking into consideration that all employees won't be present at work every day.
And that's
especially when we
understandable,
allow leave.
and I understand that as well, but I still expect them to be there. It's their job. So my recommendation would be that we unstrike that and put it back the way it was. Thank you.
Madam
Mrs.
Chair,
Agostini?
I agree with Mr. Plank on that. I would like to see expect put back in.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Manning?
On GCO, evaluation of administrative staff.
Let's finish this one first. With GCC,
Oh, am I
GDC?
allowed to skip around?
No, you're fine. Let's just,
Because they're both on
in
there, right?
consideration of a slight bit of confusion we've had today, let's stick to one and then let's go back to that one. Is that okay?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
okay?
Does it make you happy?
It would please
Then
the
I'll
chair if you'd let me.
gladly-
What we'll do is, Mr. Plank, thank you, Mrs. Agostini. What's the consensus of the board? I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. Mr. Shad? No? No? Okay, okay, so thank you. Is there anything else on that policy before we move to the next? Anything else on GCC, GDC before we move on? Thank you, Mr. Plank. Thank you for your patience, Mr. Manning. You're chomping at the bit. I know. We're going to finish this one up and then move on. We're good?
Yeah, so I was kind of curious because it goes into a fair amount of detail in here about how the tools we're going to use to evaluate principals. And I mean, the state changes its mind about how we evaluate these folks. Like some people change, shirts and hats or whatever. I mean, I sort of feel like it's a little bit of overreach on the part of the board, right? Like, I want a policy that says you're going to evaluate principals using state-approved tools or guidelines. Sure. I don't know that I need it to go into exactly what those tools are because as that changes, now I got to change the policy. And if we don't keep in lockstep, we stay out of the policy. I would be amenable to this policy just saying, we're going to evaluate principals. If we want to talk about the timeframes or something that's a little more generic using state-approved tools, I would be fine with that. And then through administrative rule, determine that the tools will be whatever they are in line with current state policy. And again, I just feel like it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a little bit of overreach on the part of the board because I don't evaluate principals. I don't even have any employees. As a board, we have one, which aren't principals.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Mr. Shad?
Madam Chair, just briefly in response, it appears as though that was already in there. It just, because what's being struck is state laws and state Board of Education regulations, and the change is state laws and regulations. And it looks as though, from a board standpoint, we are going to make sure, per our policy, that the superintendent will enforce according to this. I think he has to do it anyway, but this just makes sure that the board makes sure that our one employee follows the law. And I think from our principals' standpoint, they need to know that there are that the state law and regulation, that sends a message to them that we are going to ensure that our superintendent follows state laws and regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Shad. Dr. Elkins Johnson?
Thank you so much. And my comment is, if you go under principals evaluation, you have inserted the superintendent may add standards and criteria as established by the principal and superintendent in collaboration.
Tell me where you
Is
are,
that-
Dr. Which
I'm
paragraph?
sorry.
Which paragraph, please?
If you go to principals evaluation, it's in that first paragraph towards bottom with stars and dark print, well, bold print.
I'm there, thank you.
Superintendent, yes. Is that in collaboration with the evaluation from the State Department, or is that addition to?
It is a part of the State Department evaluation. The last standard in PDEP is where the principal, in collaboration with the supervisor, develop goals.
So really, that's still just a part of that
PDEP,
tool?
correct.
Okay, okay, thank you. I wasn't sure if that was an addition, so thank you.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Shad,
I'm sorry, and to Mr. Manning's point, yes, the state, they change the regs and they give us things all the time, but of course, I would expect our superintendent to be, and our human resource folks to be up on those changes and will comply as the changes occur. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Shad. Are there any other questions or comments? And is there a Mrs. Agostino?
Madam Chair.
My apologies.
I'm seeking clarification for the last sentence on this policy. Satisfactory performance on an evaluation does not guarantee reemployment as a principal. To me, when I think of satisfactory performance, it also meets expectations. So if they were meeting our expectations, why would there be a question?
Dr. Davis?
It could be a situation where if for some reason you had to remove a principal for any other conduct that was not a part of the evaluation, you don't want them to be able to say, on my last evaluation, it was satisfactory. It could be a situation where you may have to reduce a school in the event if something ever happened, and I don't think that would happen here, but it gives us the flexibility if for some reason we have to close a school, for example. We did a combination of a situation like that with our academies. Then you don't have to guarantee that there's a principal, that they're reassigned as a principal.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostini. Are there any other questions or concerns at this time? And Mr. Manning, was that your recommendation, or was it simply an observation? Is there a recommendation from anyone at this time to make any
My
changes?
question is PDEP a certain tool, or are you just referring to that is a specific tool, right? Right, so that's the current state tool, correct? PDEP. And before that, what was it? STEP? It's been PDEP for a while. Anyways, I mean, if the rest of the board doesn't want to change it, that's fine, but I just feel like that doesn't necessarily need to be in there, that we just need to say we're going to follow state law and standards and allow the superintendent to be able to make those changes as they occur without having to come to the board and then update the policy to reflect whatever the current winds of the State Department are.
Thank you.
It's just a recommend, I mean, if nobody wants to do that, that's fine, but.
Mr. Shad?
I would just direct everyone's attention under principal's evaluation on page 1. Looks like there is an addition to the last sentence, that first paragraph, where it says the district may use an approved alternative evaluation process that meets state and national standards. So if PDEP goes out, as Mr. Manning said, then it's already it's in our policy that it's in his discretion to do an alternative.
Thank you, Mr. Shad. Additional questions or comments? And just to make a comment, I absolutely see your point. And I think that they've gotten, I see both of your points, and I think that they've got that language in there just to make it ironclad, but it looks like there is leeway if there are changes to be made that they'll be honored. But is there a recommendation at this time? Yeah, just recommended additions or changes is what I was saying. Yeah, not a motion, but no recommendations for changes? Hold on, anybody, if everyone has the right to say, anyone? No? Okay, thank you all. Moving on. Thank you, Dr. Franklin. Moving on to item 14, specifically 14.1, agenda items for the October 23rd, 2018 board meeting. Dr. Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of the board, for the October 23rd, 2008 future agenda work session, we will have student appeals, adult ed requests, a legislative update. We'll be looking for approval for policy revisions GCO, GCC/GDC, proposals of policies IHAE, which is physical education, IHAM, which is health education, IKF/R, which is graduation requirements, IKADD/R, which is content and credit recovery. In addition, please strike the first quarter financial statement, which is on there. I think we will push that back one more month. And we need to add DKC for the next meeting for approval. That's correct, wasn't it? DKC, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Are there any recommendations or suggestions for agenda items for the next board meeting or future board meetings at this time? If not, we will move on to item 15.1, board and superintendent comments. And I'll start on my right with Mr. Plank, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just end with, in the spirit of the Teacher of the Year, maybe bookend what Mr. Shad had done with his story earlier as just as a poem that was written by a student that I just think was powerful as it relates to teachers, especially those who pour in every day. And it goes, in short, I am this person lost in the world and I don't know where to turn. Wanting to achieve in anything I do, I want to be treated like I exist. I want to be seen for more than the outer me. I want to be seen for the person inside of me. I feel like I'm alone in the world. I feel like there is no one out there in the world to run to when I feel like it's the end of me. Sometimes I want to run away to a place where no one can hurt me. Sometimes I feel like life for me will never go right. As much as I try, it will never go right. What should I do if the problems I face won't come up from the deep, dark place inside me? Who should I turn to? If I can't turn to the person who gave me life, then who can I turn to? The poem's entitled, Who Can I Turn To?, written by a student. And many times students don't have someone they can turn to except a teacher. And I just want to thank all of the teachers. I know they've gone for the evening, long gone for the evening. But we appreciate all teachers, all administrators, all educators. We appreciate our community for coming out. There are many, many places who are there to support our students. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Plank. Mr. Manning.
I also have a soliloquy I'd like to read.
Oh, gosh. Oh, dear.
Just because we haven't been here long enough. So I want to get in on the action. No, I want to thank our teachers as well, but I'd also like to thank our support staff. We had our administrative assistants that received recognitions tonight. For every teacher, it takes a lot of people to support what goes on in that classroom. It's our bus drivers and our maintenance staff and our janitors that make sure everything's clean, to make sure our facilities are good. Just a lot of support staff. And I want to thank all of them also, because they don't always get, the big fancy plaques on the wall like our teachers get. And I certainly do appreciate their work, but appreciate everybody's effort that it takes to get those students across the finish line to make sure that they have what they need. And so thank you for that. Also want to remind people, because I know you'll be tired of hearing about this, but we do have a bond to make sure that our students are safe and secure in school, to make sure that they have not 1988 buses like we have now on the road, so that they can get to school in a safe and timely manner. To make sure that there's equity in our facilities and access for all students. If you haven't taken the time to learn more about that, I would ask that you either come to one of our many information sessions or that you go on our website to find more details. I appreciate our partners, the Village Church. We have our military here. We continue to grow our partners that come to our meetings and participate and be part of the solution in our community, and I do appreciate that. So otherwise, y'all have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Dr. Caution Parker.
Unlike my predecessors, I'm going to be brief. I want to say congratulations to all the Teachers of the Year. That is a phenomenal award. It's one that you won't forget. And going way back in time in 87, 88, I was the District Teacher of the Year, and I have never forgotten that, and I have it in everything that I print about me to give out to the public. It's just something that just means a lot, to know that your peers think so much of you and what you're doing, and the parents and the community, so much of what you're doing in the classroom. So my hat's off to the Teachers of the Year. Just great. And also to Lake Shake Outstanding Young Man, Ethan. Oh my goodness. And I know he's probably in bed asleep. But that was just phenomenal this evening. And I'm just so impressed with him and what he's learned from the program that he's participated in. And Mr. Shad, I want to thank you for your story. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was very moving. So, and thank all of you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Dr. Caution Parker. Dr. Elkins Johnson?
Yes, just want to thank the Village Church for being a part of the meeting today and just for your community service. You guys are always doing things, and we do appreciate that. Want to thank Ethan. I mean, he is just phenomenal. Also want to say congratulations to all of the teachers of the year. Want to thank Lisa Ellis, and her group is SC Ed for Teacher. SC for Ed. Thank you for what you guys do, because we do need teacher leaders, and you guys do have a voice. So thank you for making your voice count. And lastly, you will see that I have I voted sticker on. It is absentee voting time. Let your vote be your voice. Make sure you go out there and investigate candidates, be a part of the community and see what's going on so you can make an informed decision. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Elkins Johnson. Mrs. Agostini?
Well, this will be highly repetitive, but thank you, Mr. Shad, for providing that wonderful inspirational moment this evening. Again, congratulations to all of our teachers of the year. And thank you, Ethan, from the Lake Shake. He was very impressive. And finally, thank you, Village Church, for the treats, but more importantly, for being present and being interested. Thank you.
Mr. Shad? Thank you, Mrs. Agostini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a lawyer by trade, and y'all know I'm pulling up the rear. However, in spite of my inclination to continue to talk, I'm going to take on the spirit of this former seat, the former seat for Mr. Manning, and just say thank y'all, have a good evening, and please be safe the rest of this week. That's all I got.
Well put, Mr. Shad. Dr. Davis?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just a very quick roll call. Richardson, Walker, Goodwin, Vaughn, Jackson, Deegan, McIntyre, Ross, Kempson, Edney, Cone, and Lee. That's every teacher I had from first grade to second grade. That made an impact in my life. Wow. I still remember them to this day. I remember their class. I remember how they treated me. And they each had an impact on who I am today, not only as a man, but as a learner. And so for our Teachers of the Year, I say congratulations to you all for your recognition, because you have indeed made an indelible impact on the students that have come into your classroom. I also want to share that the new deadline to register to vote is now November the 6th. For the November 6th election is Wednesday, October the 17th. The deadline was extended because of the impact of Hurricane Florence on communities around the state. So for more information on voting, you can go to scvotes.org. You can actually see your sample ballot, not just a sample ballot, but if you put your name in and your birth date, you can see your sample ballot, which is something I learned last night. On October 18th and 19th, we will make up 2 of the 4 days missed due to Hurricane Florence. I invite members of the Richland 2 family to come out to the board candidate forum on Tuesday, October the 16th. Our teacher forum is in partnership with the League of Women Voters. We'll host the event, which begins at 6:30 p.m. Right here at the R2I2 Conference Center. Community members, if you have not attended one of our community information sessions on the bond referendum, please go to www.richland2.org/bond. Under the district presentation schedule, you will see dates for several upcoming events. And just as a piece of cap information, Richland 2 was well represented over the last week. We had an opportunity to present to the, be recognized and spotlighted and highlighted at the Magnet Schools of America's Conference, which was held here in Columbia. The MSA Conference, Technical Assistance Conference was held here. And we had a chance to speak on diversity and inclusion in our Magnet programs, Dr. Grant and myself, as well as give a presentation of our Magnet schools and an overview and tours of several of our Magnet schools throughout the district, and they all did a phenomenal job. In addition, we had a chance to be a part of the United States Conference of Mayors held right here in Columbia, which was another national event, to talk specifically about school safety and the measures of school safety that we were taking here in Columbia and in Richland School District 2. We were the only school district that was highlighted and had an opportunity to speak with mayors from across the country, as well as police chiefs from across the country, about what we're doing to help ensure that we're keeping our students and our teachers safe in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. One of the double-edged sword effects of going last is that everything's been said, so I echo my colleagues' sentiments. I won't beleaguer the evening any longer. One thing I always say is that thank you all for being here. There are a lot of folks in the room with microphones who have to be here, but there are equally as many people who don't have to be here. Long before I was a board member, I was a parent who came to board meetings and paid attention and would go back and report to my school improvement council the things that went on here. So thank you for the folks who are here. Just because you're interested in taking information back to your organizations, the military, just bless you all for being here. It's been a long night. We didn't think it would be, but this is really weighty stuff that we do. The decisions that we make here aren't to be taken lightly with regard to anything that we discuss. And so I always appreciate the opportunity for us to have, constructive, positive conversation. But just thank you all for being here and for paying attention. And just to reiterate, the things that are on our agenda, they're posted. They're posted online before you get here. So if you ever want to see what's here, the attachments are there. The agenda items are here. They're there, so you don't have to have any surprises. But bless you all for being here. And I'm going to put our superintendent on the spot. I'm thankful for all of our teachers. Everything that needs to be said has been said. I echo their sentiment. Our superintendent does a pretty good job of keeping us posted of his comings and his goings. One of his big things is being engaged in the community with community partners. And tonight, before we came into our public session, he was updating us on the things that he had coming up and why he wouldn't be in the office. And I'd love for you to share some of those things at this time, because I'm just very proud of the things you've got going. And I'll put him on the spot. I'm sorry, but he was telling us why he may not be available in his office because he had this, and this going on. And I just want folks to know that of the hard work that goes on behind the scenes with our superintendent. So I'd like for him to share some of those things. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you are.
Very, very quickly, it's the result of all the hard work of the folk in our district, our teachers, our staff, our board, that puts me in these exceptional positions. So I don't take any of that for granted. We're having an opportunity to serve on an elite group of superintendents from across the country on an AVID advisory panel, the very first one that they've created. But that's a testament to our commitment to AVID. Mary Page Boyce does an outstanding job of leading our AVID program, as well as our principals in the district whose schools have been nominated as rewarded as demonstration schools, and the phenomenal teachers and students that embrace the AVID concepts. And so they've asked me to serve on a advisory panel for them, as well as the League of Innovative Schools and Digital Promise has started an advisory panel for learner variability, as we have been discussing learner variability here in the district for the last year or so. Would like for me to serve on a panel to discuss that. Again, a small group of superintendents from around the country will be leading that discussion, helping to move education forward in this country. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. I don't know if he said elite. I'm not sure. Did he just gloss over it? Did he gloss over it? Yeah, thank you so much.
Their words, not mine.
Yeah, but we're very proud of the work that you do on our behalf to support the district and our faculty and teachers to ultimately benefit our end user, which is our students. If there are no other questions or comments at this time, we'll consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. Be safe.